right, welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Chasing Ghosts. This is the video series where I talk about those hard to find, those impossible to find comics, those really, really tough books that you got to get lucky in finding, do some legwork, some research, and track down to add them to your collection. Hopefully, you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. Make sure you check out all of the shows, dropping a new show basically every day here on the channel. And if you want to see what books I got for you this week, I got a little special episode for you. Just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, so getting right to it, our special episode or special topic, I guess you would say, for this week is an artist, and that artist is Arthur Adams. Art Adams, big fan, and he has been killing it lately, and has a couple of more coming our way with some of these incentive covers that will probably be things we're going to look at down the line for this show. But for now, let's look at some of these books recently. This one's coming out. I think FOC was this past week, the Uncanny Avengers. I really like that Psylocke. We had that Snowbird just a couple of weeks ago. We got Emma Frost recently as well. He's been, like I said, he's been killing it lately. I'm a big fan, and there's a lot of old books that we can get back into and start looking at. So I'm not going to waste any time because I have more than normal on this show just because I just kept adding, and I didn't even get them all. So feel free to make some more suggestions down below in the bottom of this video for some books that I might have missed, because I know I missed some. I know I skipped some intentionally, because we can probably do this again. But with that all said, let's get into the ones I did select, starting with a popular one of late. Everybody likes pointing out this book, and this book is really, really tough to find, and that is Young Allies number 6. Is this Spitfire? Really like this cover. All of them, again, these are all going to be Art Adams, so this page is basically going to be the same, except for the incentive, the incentive ratio number there, which of this one, it's only a 1 in 15. But this came out back in November of 2010, and at that time, a title like this wasn't moving that many copies. So let's see exactly what we have with a potentially 1 in 15 incentive ratio. Again, these are estimates based off of order numbers, not exactly what was printed. We're not saying these are concrete numbers to count on. It's just a guideline to give you some sense of what we're talking about here. You got to use your own eyes, look at what's out there, and make determinations on your own. And we could check censuses, etc. But with that all said, estimated print run of about 11,000 on this book. So a 1 in 15 ratio would yield about 734 copies. Again, it's an estimated number. It's our best guess. Is it more? Is it less? I don't know for certain, but this is what we got to work with. However, in the CGC census, we can see that there are only 35 copies. Even after all this time and all of the talk about this book, and you'll see some of the prices on this book, if there were many more out there, more would probably be hitting the census to get even a bigger premium on their sales. But this is all we've got. We only got 35 total with 798s, 896s, 1094s. As you can see, high grade is tough on this book. We even got 492s, 590s, and there's even an 85 in there. So high grade, definitely not easy to come by with this black cover. 1 in 15. And this thing, like I said, has actually sold a lot. Look at all these copies that sold the last couple of months. There's more than these 4. These are just 4 examples. We've got $2,000. $2,000. And that's a CBCS. What is that, a 9.2? 9.4, best offer on $1,700. A 9.8 CGC, 15 bids got that up to $3,250. And then a raw right there at the end of August, $911 on 18 bids. So again, a book a lot of people are looking for. At auction, you can see there's a lot of action. Best offers here, high asking prices for fixed. And like I said, there's more than these 4, but that's what I have as far as an example for you. Now, if you wanted to buy one, can you get one? Yeah, you can. Not many, but I did find 3. I found 3 right now. $1,200 for a raw, $1,800 for a 9.4, and a 9.2 looking for 2K. Not a cheap book. Like I said, if there were that many more out there, we'd probably see more of them hitting the census because look at these prices. Look at these prices. But with that said, there's still a few out there if you wanted to go buy one. So we know where we're going to file that one later. Let's move on. Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel, number one, the 2014 series, I believe this was. Let's see here. Art Adams. Yep, February 2014. This is a 1 in 50 incentive for her her first solo title there. And yeah, you got Kamala Khan front and center. You got Carol Danvers right there behind her. Decent print run since this was a new number one of 50,000, but at a 1 in 50, we're looking at approximately 1,000 copies on the incentive. In the CG census, we have a whopping 101 copies with 69 eighths, 28 9/6s, and a few others rounding that out. Copies have sold. We've got here 3 examples. Best offer on 175 bucks at my comic shop there on a very fine and near mint. They're grading about a 9.0, 9.0 raw. Best offer on 175. You got a 9.8 that sold for only 300 bucks at CGC, and then 90 bucks for a raw down below. And like I said, there's more, but this gave a good sense of how much this 1 in 50 goes for. As far as what's available, what do we got out there? We got a couple of copies. We actually have more than the 3 that I'm showing here. So there are plenty of options if you're out there in the market for this book. About 100 bucks, 187 bucks for a 9.6. Again, there's a 9.8 looking for almost $1,000, even though one just sold for 300 bucks, but they're looking for almost $1,000. And then there's a raw asking $400. But as you saw, where the sale prices are and where the asking prices are, there's a pretty far gap. So I think there's a lot of play in between those two numbers where if you're interested, you got some room to work with, especially with all of these options that might accept best offers. So just keep that in mind. Now, this was the 1 in 50 for that title, but it wasn't the highest ratio because you might guess, yep, there was a 1 in 100, and yep, it was just a black and white version of this cover. You know, I'm not a big fan of when they just do that and they just say, hey, we'll make it a black and white, a sketch version. I don't like it personally, but Marvel did it for a good long while, and here's another one of those examples from back in 2014. Here in the 1 in 100, Art Adams, etc. Number's still the same, except the fact that since it's a 1 in 100, we're potentially maybe only at about 500 copies for this one. CGC Census actually has more than the last one, with 161 in the census for this. 114 9/8s, 27 9/6s, 13 9/4s, and then a few on down the road. A couple of copies of this sold the last 3 months. Only 2, but I found 2. A 9.6 sold for all of $96 on 9 bids, and best offer on 500 bucks for one of those 9/8s. I didn't go into the details to try to figure out what the offers were accepted because you get the general idea, right? We don't need to know the exact numbers, but here's another case of while that Young Allies book is in a lot of people's minds, a lot of watchers, you saw a lot of action on those auctions. This one, even though it had 9, still, this isn't one of those books you want to throw out there at auction because then you're going to end up with under 100 bucks for a 9.6 for a 1 in 100 incentive variant, which probably ain't the best because you probably paid a decent amount for this to begin with. You got to pay the grading fee and the shipping to and from the CGC. So you're talking about $30 plus just for that grading process, and mailing is a little bit more. You're just going to lose. You're going to lose if you try to auction books that are not at the, that aren't hot or aren't books that people are looking for. You're better off just putting it out there, accepting offers, and taking what what you're willing to take. That said, copies for sale. Yes, we do have copies for sale, and we have more than the 3 that I got here, but these are good examples to give you a sense that 9/8s could be listed from anywhere from $550 all the way up to $1,300. And then look, there's a 9.6 that's only at $220, but you saw what it sold at auction, so who knows where the right price is for this book. Again, if you're in the market, this is what you're working with. You make your call on your own what you want to do. Another popular character and a popular variant for Art Adams over the last, decade or so was this America. America number 2. I remember when this came out, everybody was loving this. I liked it too, but it was a higher ratio incentive, and I wasn't shopping for books that were 1 in 50s, and that's what this was, a 1 in 50 from April of 2017. Just because the buy-in's so high. I mean, it's a 1 in 50, so you're paying close to ratio or more the day it comes out. I don't like to do that all that often. It's I don't know. It's just not fun. I like looking for variants for cheap, like dig them out of a box, mark down, because only I find them interesting. Anyway, not going to get into all that. We're just going to move on to the print run, which is about 24,000 thereabouts. So our 1 in 50 incentive is just under 500. So not a ton potentially out there. In the census, there's a decent number because, like I said, there was a lot of hype around this book, a lot of talk around this book, a lot of speculation around the character, and this was one of her more notable variants. So America Chavez, this is one of her bigger books. So 124 in the census with 99 9/8 and 29 6s, and it looks like a couple of others, just kind of rounding that out. This thing still sells, pretty well. Not where it once was. I mean, we're looking at 2 to 271 for 9/8. So, I mean, it's not terrible, but it is a 1 in 50. You would have hoped for more because at one time, this was a lot more, but not these days. So, 2 to 300 bucks, it looks like a 9/8 is fetching. And as far as copies available, like I said, you got options. These are popular books. Art Adams is a popular artist, and when he does incentives, people do tend to order more, and we do see more of them on the market. Here we go. 9/8's looking for 600 bucks, 550, $650. So still decent asking prices there, but you saw what it was actually selling for. So if you're in the market, try to find yourself somewhere closer to those sale prices, not the asking prices. All right. Up next, this is a book that I actually won in a mystery pack in one of those Stein mystery packs not that long ago. So this is New Mutants, number 15. This is a 1 in 20 incentive. Another Art Adams. Again, they're all Art Adams. Didn't get a hold of this book until now. Like I said, I got it right here. It was one of my, like I said, one of my winnings, and I was happy to get it from July of 2010. Print run on this thing seems high at about 35,000, and a 1 in 20 is going to give you about 1,700 copies. But I'm telling you, I'm not seeing 1,700 copies out there. When you look in the census, you only got 50. So after over a decade, there's only 50 in the census with 17 9/8s, 19 9/6s, 8 9/4s, and then a few others. So only 17, only 12 of them are blue labels. And look, I got one of them. That said, what sold? So 3 copies sold the last 3 months. Raw's getting $120, $150 best offers, 200 bucks. No graded copy selling because you saw there's not that many. There's only 50 graded copies. So none of the graded ones are moving, but here are 3 Raws that sold over the last 3 months. And as far as if you're shopping for one, well, I only found 2. So again, with all those with the numbers, the big numbers were our estimates. So this was the highest number of all our estimates. This time I only found 2. And at the time of me doing my research, there was only these 2 up here where it's a 9/6 looking for 200 bucks. And then there's one Raw at auction that's starting bid at $40 with still a few days to go. So we'll see where that one ends. But that's what's on the market right now for this book. Again, this show is just a snapshot in time. At this moment, this is what's out on the market. So things could change. A week, 2 weeks from now, the market could be completely different. There could be 10 copies up, or there could be no copies up. We'll see as we move on down the road. But as of right now, this is what we got to work with. And we do have another Art Adams Magic New Mutants cover to talk about next. And this is from the same series, but 10 issues later. Issue 25. A 1 in 25 this time from May of 2011. This one, so print run's about the same, but since it's a higher ratio incentive, we have a few less with only about maybe under 1,400 copies of this potential out there. Again, I just love the art here. I love the style, the look, and the eyes, the pouty lips. It's just, I don't know. I'm a fan. As I said, I'm an Art Adams fan. That said, in the census for this book, about the same. 51 copies. Just much like the last one. But in this case, there were only 2 9/8s. 24 9/6s, 17 9/4s. So a lot of people shooting, but only 2 9/8s. That is surprising. Tough book. You can see the black cover. That's probably got a lot to do with it. And yeah, copies, not a ton of movement, but we did have 3 sales the last few months. All raw, all solid prices. I mean, look, 220 bucks with 1 bid and then some best offers on $400 and $350. So this is a couple $100 raw book if you could find it out there. And what did I find when I went looking for this book? Well, I kind of found that. Granted, just like the last book, I only found two, but it's $270 raw, and then I found a 9.4 that wants 550. So not a cheap one, and not a lot of options. So once again, on the tougher side, with only two copies out there. Shifting gears, moving away from magic, but still sticking in the realm of magic, we're going to go with a Scarlet Witch cover that he did for Children's Crusade #3. I love the incentives on this series. There's a couple of good ones. This was the one for #3. So Avengers Children's Crusade from November 2010. So in that same kind of time frame, a 1 in 25. You got Wanda there. Love the classic outfit. Again, it's just a gorgeous cover. Gorgeous art. About the same. The print run's kind of the same. And the incentive is about the same there at about 1,400 as well. In the census, though, is it the same? It's actually a little bit more. We got 76 this time in the census for this with 42 9/8. So the last book, 2 9/8. This one, 42. So much easier to grade. Only some dark bits on this cover, so I guess it's a little more forgiving. So 42 9/8, 18 9/6s, 10 9/4s, and etc. I'm moving on down the line there. Copies sold. We did have more than these three that I got for you, but we did have these three as good examples. A couple of signature series. I mean, Art Adams has been making the tours. He was there at Baltimore, though I did not get to see him. It's just I forgot, lost track of time, and just never. When I was looking, he wasn't there. It just didn't happen. But maybe next time for me. 150 for a 9.2 signature series with 22 bids. A raw sold for $200, and then there's a $250 9.6, also a signature series. So I know SSs could be a little bit different because more people will pay a premium for the signatures. Some people care, some people don't. I am more on the don't. I like meeting artists, etc. But signatures just aren't my thing. I don't go chasing them or hunting them. I have a few signed books, but it's just not something I go and pay an extra bit for. I'd rather just have the book. But that's just me. As far as those are the example sales, what do we have as example listings? Well, I did find three. I found three, a 9.4 looking for 225, and then a couple of raws looking for right about $200. So once again, a couple $100 for this book seems to be the the price point. So make of that what you will. Our next book, and some of these I might have talked about on the shows because again, we're jumping through different titles. Art Adams has done a lot of work for a lot of different titles. Like we're going to jump. Yes, I know we've gone, sexy girl, cute girl after cute girl. Now we're going to pivot to something completely different. Deadpool. Yes, he has a Deadpool cover. And yes, it is an homage to a classic Batman cover, as you might have noticed. So, Deadpool comics here, number 27. The homage to, Tech 27. Whopping $10 cover price on this because this is one of those thick, anniversary size books for Deadpool. So, $10 out of the gate for this. Also, cutting into the potential on how many copies were ordered, but there was still a ton ordered, even at $10. This was in prime Deadpool time. But with that said, this was still a 1 in 50 on a $10 book. Art Adams, April 2014. Print run, as you're about to see. Look, 62,000. Despite $10, 62,000. But since it's a 1 in 50 and not like a 1 in 25 as we've been going through, only maybe 1,200 copies. Thereabouts. Again, estimates, best guesses. In the census, though, we do know this is what we have. Under 100 copies with 91. We got 47 9/8s, 26 9/6s, and then a few others. Only one copy I could find has sold in the last 3 months, at least on eBay. Again, I use eBay because it's the easiest history record that I can go and find. You guys can all see it too. You can double check my work. You can go check for yourselves. It's all out there. But a copy sold. It was one of those 9.0s. One bid for $70. That ain't bad, if you ask me. A 1 in 50 for $70 that's graded. I get it. It's only a 9.0. It's not the highest grade in the world, but could do worse. That's all I'm saying. But copies available. I only found two. Only two. I found 2 9/8s. One blue label, one signature series. Both of them right around $300. We're not going to hem and haw over $20 at that point. $280, $300. What's the difference? It's about a $300 9/8. That's what it seems to be. At least that's what's out there. So make of that what you will. Up next, I only picked one of these. He did a couple of these character covers at the start of this title, but I just decided to pick one. So again, I know I didn't cover all of his covers, but here's one Carnage, number 2, Spider-Man. So we got an awesome Spider-Man cover here. I mean, yeah, it doesn't look like much. It doesn't look like at first glance you go, oh, it's just Spidey. But I'm telling you, you look closer at this and you see the detailed work and the line work of the webbing, etc. I'm a fan. Like I said, the line work of Art Adams is phenomenal. So I dig it. I like this one. This is issue 2 of Carnage. This is the Clayton Crane run when he was doing that Carnage bit. This is a 1 in 25 for that book, December 2010. So we're looking at a print of about 32,000. So our incentive is maybe around 1,300. In the census, we're looking at about only 34 copies with 18 9/8, 11 9/6, and then a couple others. Couldn't find any copies that sold the last 3 months of this book. So no copies had sold. I guess people just weren't into this for one reason or another. Like I said, I kind of dig it. And if you look closely, you'll see why. That said, listed for sale, I did find a small handful. I found 4. We found a 9/8, $160, a 9/6, 125, and then a raw for $200, and then another 9/8 looking at $300. So again, still $100 to $200 kind of prices here, raw, graded, etc. Not a cheap book for it being a 1 in 25 that had over 1,000 copies. If you noticed a trend here for a lot of these books, there are a decent number of copies potentially available. But still, even with that, most of these are still pretty pricey because, again, Art Adams has a pretty big fan base. There's a lot of people who will pay a premium for his work. So that's what we're looking at here. But yet, we still found copies when we went looking. Let's keep it rolling and see if that holds. Let's move on to another character, Cage. Luke Cage. Love this series. Bruce Timm on the earlier issue, what was it, issue 2 or issue 3? But here we are, issue 4 of Cage. Art Adams, 1 in 25, January 2017. I believe this is the final issue of that miniseries, but pretty cool. Cage coming right at you. I love the trade dress interplaying with the character. I love it when artists do that, where it's not just a standard, plaqued on, logo. It's worked into the art itself. I'm a fan. But with that, print run is only about 19,000. So at that ratio, we're looking at about 750 copies. Interesting. In the census, we only have 9. They are all 9/8. 6 of them are signature series. Only 3 blue labels, but they're all 9/8. Not a lot of copies at all, but interesting. No copies had sold the last 3 months, though, for me to get a sense of what the market's willing to pay for this book. But I can tell you what they're asking because we do have a whole 2. Only 2, but I did find 2. Both of them raw, both of them looking for $300. So, definitely not a cheap one. Just like the last few, definitely not cheap. But let's see what we got for our next book. Moving on from Cage, we got another offhand title, but this one actually had a decent print run because of the characters were being pushed by Marvel as their next big thing at the time. We're talking about the Inhumans, the Uncanny Inhumans. So, issue 1 of this new series. This is the 1 in 50 incentive by Art Adams. Pretty cool Medusa cover. You got Kamala Khan back there. A couple of the characters of the Inhumans behind her. But decent print run, as I said. 90,000 is the estimated print run on that, number 1. So even at a 1 in 50, we're looking at potentially 1,800 copies of this book out there. So that's why there are probably going to be plenty of these out there, including, only 29 in the census. I would have thought there would have been more, but only 29. 20 of them are 9/8, 6 9/6s, and then just a couple of others. But maybe it's because of the Inhumans. I know they've taken a lot of heat the last few years. Not a bunch of fan interest anymore. That probably explains why no copies have sold the last 3 months. But if you did want to go buy one with 1,800 copies potentially out there, I still would have thought I would have found more. But I did find 3. And this one, unlike some of the others, actually is kind of cheap. Look at these prices. They're actually under ratio in some cases for this 1 in 50 at $42, $44, and then there's one at 80. But yeah, just something that's out there. So it's worth noting. This is a cheaper option if you are out there shopping for some Art Adams incentives. And here's a 1 in 50 that, while it's still not cheap, it is right around ratio at least, which is a lot more than you can say for some of those other books. I mean, we're talking thousands for that Young Allies. But that said, I love this next one. One of my favorite covers. I think I bought one, but I'm not 100%. I got to go digging to make sure that I have one, because if I don't, this is one of the books I have to put on my to-do list, maybe for next year. I got to go back to my want list. But here we are. Ultimates #1. I'm a big fan of Galactus. I'm a big Silver Surfer guy. Galactus as well. I dig this cover. I do. I think I've talked about this on this show before, or one of the other shows here that I've done on the channel, because again, I'm just a big fan. So I just got to double check that I got it. But with that said, this is Ultimates #1. This is a 1 in 50 incentive from November 2015. Decent print run on it. So we're talking over 60,000 copies. So at a 1 in 50, we're looking at a little over 1,200 potentials out there. In the census, solid 65 with 33.98s, 18.96s, and a few others. So there's options. There's some copies out there. A couple copies even sold the last couple of months. A 9.85 bids, only $113. I would have bought that. I probably would have went up to 150, maybe 125 personally for that. Best offer on $200 for a raw, mind you. But this is another case where I'm showing you, don't auction stuff like this. As much as I personally like it, there's not a ton of people looking for this. Look, that auction only had 5 bids. It's one of those things, like, if you're not actively looking for it, you're going to miss it. So if you are a seller and you got some of these harder to find books, I implore you, think before you put it up for auction. That's all. It could work out in your favor. Like, look at the Young Allies. We saw some of those prices. Could be a lot of action if it's a book that's on the, in everybody's mind. But a book like this, I don't think there's a ton of people talking about this one right now. So there's not going to be a ton of people looking, because awareness is key for auctions. But with that said, what's available? So as a potential shopper, what am I looking at if I wanted to go and get one of these? And I only found 3 options. Not cheap for those 9.8s. We're looking at $450 to $500. Far cry from that $113 win somebody snuck there. And then a raw $300. Not even with a best offer. Buy it now. So, not a cheap copy to be had. Look at that 9.8 again. 5 bids, $113. Somebody got a deal. Congrats. With that, let's move on. Have you noticed we moved off of all the sexy girl covers? They're not all sexy girl covers. I know that's the common misconception when you think of an Art Adams cover. You're like, oh, look, I showed you even at the front. It's like, look, you got the Psylocke coming, you got the Emma Frost. Look, we got a Galactus, we got a Cage, we had a Spider-Man, we had a Deadpool, and we now have a Wolverine cover. Sideways. Yeah, I don't know why it is. It's just done sideways. So you got to turn on its side. Pretty cool Art Adams. Issue 313 of Wolverine. It almost looks like a trading card to me. 1 in 30 incentive on this book from September of 2012. It's a solid book. Copies printed. Estimated about just under 40,000. So with our 1 in 30 incentive, we're looking at maybe 1,300 copies if we do that quick ratio math. Not too bad, but still, 1 in 30 is kind of a lower ratio, because we've done a lot of 1 in 50s today. And 1 in 30 just, is going to yield more covers, because it's an easier number for some shops to hit. With that said, CGC Census, 25 copies in there with 16 9/8, 7 9/6s, and then just a couple of others rounding that number out. So definitely not a lot in the census for this, but that is what we found. What I did find was only one sale. One sale the last 3 months, and it was a $65 raw book. So double ratio, a little more than double ratio, and a raw copy for this 1 in 30. And that was just on the 15th, so just like 10 days ago. Not too bad. If you did want a copy and were shopping for this Wolverine book, you could find some, because I found more than these 3. So it wasn't that hard to track down. A 9.6 was only $90. But then the raws are also right around that same price, about $100. So, it's not on the highest end, but it's definitely not Inhumans cheap. So it's kind of somewhere in that middle there for this Wolverine book. But if you're interested, there you go. Another interesting one, to me at least, is Sam Alexander's Nova, issue 25 for Nova. This is another 1 in 25 incentive by Art Adams in this wheelhouse of 2014. Look, he was killing it at this time too. December 2014. Estimated print run on Nova at the time was only about just under 22,000. So this incentive is under 1,000. This is on the lower end. Have you noticed a lot of over 1,000 copies? This is potentially 872. CGC census here, there were only 5 in the census. Only 5 graded copies of this book with 398s, 196, and 192. Interesting. I guess it's just not a lot of people want to sub their Nova books. I still think we're probably going to get some form of Sam Alexander down the road sometime in the MCU, but it's not his first appearance. It's I think this is actually the last of his solo series of this run. And with that said, no copies sold the last 3 months. Like I said, so not a lot of Nova action these days. No copies sold, but it's still a pretty cool cover. You got Thor, you got Captain Marvel back there, you get Spidey, you got Falcon Cap, you got Spider Woman. There's Wanda down below. You got Hawkeye as well. Yeah, pretty fun little cover there. But none sold. And as far as what's available, there were some. There were some. I found more than these 3, and once again, not that cheap. Raw, about 100 to 160, and then there was a 9.8, just under $300. So definitely not cheap for this book, but there they are. So with that all said, you can see this one is kind of again in that middle ground a little bit there, like the Wolverine. But moving on to our next book, I told you we got a lot. We got more than normal. I normally only do like 10 to 12, but I think it did closer to 16 or so, 15 or 16. So got a few more. I haven't been counting, but I think we're coming near the end. I think we're in the last third. But we do have Miracle Man. So another oddball title here. I say oddball because I know it was a big deal when Marvel got the rights to do Miracle Man, and they printed a lot of these. A lot of these. But this, and with those copies that they printed, they also had high ratios, like this 1 in 75. It's again 2014, popular year today for Art Adams. Miracle Man number 2, 1 in 75 incentive. Granted, 50,000 is not a ton, but it's still a lot. And even at a 1 in 75, we're looking at just under 700 potentials for this incentive. In the census, not a ton graded. Not a lot of people want to get this one graded either, with only 6. 398s, 296s, and 194. 321, right down the line. One of those copies, did it sell or is this a raw? Let's see. I got one sale. It was a raw and it was only $33. Half ratio. Told you. I mean, it's just one of those things. Miracle Man is not as popular as he once was. It was more of like a cult thing. I remember trying to find those early Miracle Mans, reading through my wizard and seeing them talk about it and be like, I'm never going to find this book. I don't know where to find this Miracle Man book. So Marvel brought it back, but I don't think the interest is held over time. 1 copy sold. We got a handful available as well here with 4 copies available. 9.8 only wants $85. A 9.8 on a 1 in 75 incentive that has potentially only 700 copies. Is that what our math worked out? Raw copies, 50, 30, $20. Whew, this is a cheapie. So if you're looking for one, here's a cheap one for you. It's still pretty cool. I mean, you got the Earth, the globe, you flying up above. It's not a bad cover. It's just, I don't know if this is your character for you, though. If you're a big Miracle Man fan. Now, pivoting on to a more obscure character, I guess, to now in a more obscure publisher and title with Red Sonia. I'm just saying more obscure than Marvel. But Dynamite, issue 25 of Red Sonia. This is a regular cover for that title. The reason why I'm showing you this is so you can see the art fully colored in all of its glory. Pretty awesome Red Sonia. Because the incentive, however, I'm not a fan of these. I have a couple of them. I have a couple of the Jim Lee ones. Some work out better than others, but they did like a photo negative for the incentive. So here you go. I don't know. It takes away from the art because it's very jarring to the eye, to me. But here you go. This is a 1 in 15 Art Adams from August of 2007. Like I said, I like the trade dress better, but this is the incentive. Print run on a Red Sonia book at that time was only about 20,000. So we're looking at, with that 1 in 15, only about 1,400 potentials again. But it's Dynamite. A lot of covers, a lot of different variants, a lot of different artists, etc. They do things where they make them black and white, verse negative, whatever. CGC census on this, only 9. So only 9 people decided to get this graded with 2 9.8s, 4 9.6s, 2 9.4s, a 9.2, and I think that's all of them if my math is right there. I did find a sale. Only one, but I found one. And it was about the same price as that Miracle Man book. This is a 1 in 15 incentive. That was a 1 in 75. But this one sold for about that $33 mark. And when I went shopping to see how many copies are out there, if you were to go shopping for this today, well, I only found 3, but I did find 3. So 18 to 20 bucks is kind of where that price is. You got a copy in Germany and then, a couple here in the US, but right around that $20 mark seems to be all that is being asked for this 1 in 15. So more affordable, but like I said, I kind of like the trade dress better. Much like the next one, which is another Red Sonia, another Dynamite book here. She-Devil with a Sword, issue 50 now. So we go another 25 issues. We get another annual milestone issue. Art Adams comes aboard. We get the regular cover here, and we get another photo negative incentive. This time it is another 1 in 15. This month now is June of 2010. 1 in 15 incentive. Again, you just don't get to appreciate the art when it's like this. I don't know, but whatever. Print run is way down, though, from before. It's only about 13,000. So now our 1 in 15 is only giving us about 867 potential copies of this one. In the census, there's only 4. We had 9. Now we only got 4. We got 3 9/8 and a 9/6. That's it. And no one's bought one of these in the last 3 months. And if you wanted to go shopping, I only found 2. But I did find 2. 20 bucks and 80 bucks. So a wide margin there on those 2 sellers, but there's 2 out there if you're into it. So it's 1 in 15, close to ratio at about 20 bucks, or way up there at about 80. Next one, this is an oddball book. It's an offshoot title. This is from Aspen. I don't remember this title at all. I don't remember this cover at all until I was doing my research, looking for some Art Adams books to talk about. And Idolized, number 1, as I said, from Aspen. Pretty cool cover. I mean, as far as the quality of the art goes, I dig it. But once again, this is the regular cover. The incentive, of course, they had to go and mess with it. I'd have been happy to pay incentive money for a cover like this. But the incentive in this case, they decided to go sort of a black and white, but they also framed it, which was kind of weird. Like they put it on the blue board. I don't know if you've ever seen like the old blue boards that artists used to draw covers on. I mean, a lot of the art is digital these days, but some still use the blue boards. But I remember ordering blue boards when I was a kid because I wanted to be a comic artist at one time. When you're a teenager, you're sitting there drawing on your own. Anyway, they weren't cheap. They weren't cheap, but you get that. It's good the blue ink. It doesn't come up with the copying problem. Anyway, getting off topic. Here, talking about my earlier days of trying to learn how to draw and be the next Jim Lee. Here we have Art Adams, who was, I think, one of Jim Lee's also inspirations. Side note, but a note nonetheless. But this is the Idolized number 1. I believe this was a 1 in 16 incentive variant. Odd number. Why they chose that, I don't know. But there it is. August of 2012. Not going to be a lot of these out there. I mean, the estimated print run on this title in itself was only 6,300. So at a 1 in 16 or under 400 copies of this book. Census, there are 5. 3 9/8, a 9/4, and a 9/0. Only 5. And surprisingly, I found 2 sales. 25 bucks and 50 bucks. Not terrible. I don't know. Kind of intrigued by this book. And when I went shopping, I found 2 copies. They were a little more expensive, though. So I'm like, oh, not as appealing as those prices were a second ago. But still, 100 bucks and 60 bucks. So 60 bucks to 100 bucks raw for this 1 in 16 incentive variant. And granted, you got to note that the $61 one is also shipping out of the UK. So if you're in the US and they got a $25 shipping charge there, you're still paying close to 100 bucks on this. So both of those are right around the same price at about 100 bucks. But that's all I got for you. And if you've been doing your counting, you probably noticed this may be the first time I've done one of these where I didn't have any ghosts. We had plenty of hard to finds. I'm only going to show you because I did a lot of books. All of these came very, very close because they had 2 available. All 6 of these had only 2 copies available on the market. But as we made our determination early on doing this show, there's got to be 1 or none. So with 2 copies, these are still all hard to find. As tough as they are to find, as obscure as some of these titles could be, like Idolized and some of those tough magic covers on those New Mutant books, still only hard to find, which, as I just said, left us with No ghosts. No ghosts this week for Art Adams. Again, if I would have done this 2 weeks later, who knows? Maybe one of those copies of those 2 copy books would have sold and we would only had one, and then we could have called that a ghost. But that's not the point. That's not how we do this. Like I said, I don't know the results before I do the show. I come up with the books, I do the research, see what's out there, moment in time, and this is what we got. So thanks for stopping by and checking this out. After 106 episodes of doing this, no ghosts. At least by our determinations, and at this, like I said, at this snapshot in time. But hopefully you still enjoyed the show. Hopefully you still found this interesting and found some cool covers and some cool Art Adams books to put on your radar and to maybe go look for if you're interested. That said, I appreciate you all stopping by and checking this out. I appreciate all the support. Make sure you check out all the content here every day. We got another fun tax show coming for you live on Wednesday, and then we got Dollar Bin Digging. Hopefully, I can get that done for you on Thursday, and then the CBSI Hot 10 on Friday, as well as the live show with the Get Off My Lawn Boys also on Friday. And then you got SNS on Saturday, Dark Side on Sunday, and then we start the week anew with the Wednesday watch list on Monday. And then I think next week I'll give you a Hidden Gems, or maybe we'll do another Ghost. I'm not sure. Tuesday has kind of been my play day, and I've been switching that in and out with different shows. And hopefully you don't mind me doing that going forward, because again, still working on that schedule and trying to get things in a rhythm. But thanks again, and I'll see you all soon with some more content. All right, later.